Welcome, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Per Christer Lund. I'm representing the Norwegian Embassy and Innovation Norway, which is the trade promotion office of the Norwegian Embassy in Korea and also Japan, actually. So I'd like to welcome you to this Norway Day of the H2 Meet conference on hydrogen. I'd like to express our thanks to the organizer, H2 Meet, but I also like to express greetings or gratitude to our biggest support. One of the biggest supporters is the Norwegian ambassador in Korea, Anne Karin Hansen Ovid. Unfortunately, she could not be here today. She's on another assignment, so I was called in. I live in Tokyo, so I was called in to lead you through this very exciting session about the Norway Day, or Norwegians' technology and offerings in the hydrogen, ammonia, CCS space. I also like to express our thanks to our headquarter in Norway, Ivar Jo Teien, that has been very supportive for putting together this program. And not at least Dosok Kim, a local colleague here at the embassy in Seoul, for putting this program together. We have an exciting lineup of speakers covering the areas around research and technology development, on specific technology solutions, and also on the advisory and certification space. So we have 6 good speakers today to give us an insight into where Norway is moving, but not at least how Norway and Korea can collaborate in the area of hydrogen, ammonia, CCS, the low carbon value chain, I would say. I've been also given the task of giving an opening presentation. So I have the impossible task of time managing myself. But luckily there is a watch there, so or a clock, so I can manage to do that. So I'd like to give you a kind of a brief overview of the Norwegian position, the low carbon value chain situation in Norway, where we are today and where we're moving on the CCS, carbon capture and storage, which is an integral part of making black, brown, whatever color, into blue, and also the green aspects, which is based on hydro power in Norway, or green electricity, renewable electricity. So if you can put up the first presentation, please. There we go. Very good. First, yeah, I can use this. Thank you. Norway is a quite unique energy nation. I'm not sure if all of you are aware of our position in the northern part of Europe. We discovered, or we started to exploit oil and gas resources from the Northern Sea in 1969. And since then, we've been quite a major supplier of fossil fuel to not only Europe, but globally. We are the 3rd largest exporter of natural gas in the world. And we are, I think it's number 7 or something on the petroleum export, not necessarily production, but for the export. We've been increasing our gas export to Europe after the Russian invasion of, conflict with Ukraine. So we are a major contributor to the challenge of global warming. We are a major contributor to the emission of CO2 or climate gases into the atmosphere. So the question then, and of course this has been very well for our economy. It's our biggest industry, and it employs at least 100,000 people or more directly, and maybe another 100,000 out of a population of 5.5. So it's a substantial part of the Norwegian economy and our living. So the question then is, can we turn or churn our contributor to the global climate change problem into a solution? Can we be a solution provider as well? And I think we can, and I think our technologies and the companies that we are presenting here today can say something about that. We do have a major other resource in renewables energy. We have hydropower. Almost 100% of our electricity production in Norway is clean energy, clean electricity from hydropower. And we also have a massive potential in offshore wind that we are about now to harvest from. So Norway has been a major contributor of energy to Europe and the world. We want to be a major contributor of green energy or blue energy to the world using modern technology, converting natural gas to clean ammonia hydrogen and combining with CCS, and of course also electrolyzed hydrogen from our electricity. So this is where we are. And then the question is, how do we collaborate with Asian countries in this space, like Korea? We have a number of projects going on now. Christine, my colleague at the embassy, at the next speaker, she will give you an overview of Norwegian strategy on the hydrogen space, so I'm not diving very much into that. I just want to point out that we do have a number, or more than 200 projects going on now, largely supported or endorsed by the government, along the whole value chain, on the production, on consumption, decarbonizing our hard-to-abate sectors, such as transport, even the oil and gas industry, agriculture, etc., industry, energy-intensive industry. But also, we are moving up quite strongly on the R&D sector and technology development. And this is the elements that we can bring to the market. Our ambition, as it stands, is to be able to produce and deliver a substantial amount of green and blue hydrogen, primarily to the European market, because that is closer. And Europe is screaming for clean energy by pipeline or by ship or by whatever means. Not only a class, but also an advisor, and they do testing, etc. All will presenting later today. Just a few examples of projects that we have ongoing. Yara is the global second largest producer of fertilizer in the world. And of course, ammonia is the main constituent of fertilizer. They have very ambitious plan to go green on their ammonia production as well, from green ammonia. And this is one of the example, 400,000 tons per year of green ammonia in Norway. Moving forward with that. And they are about to build up a similar facility in Pilbara in Australia, where the export market, the export of that green ammonia is Korea, or Japan, or any other off-taker in Asia. So this is a very, very strong driver for that ammonia production side. The other one we have is in north of Norway, very north of Norway. One of the challenges in the very long-stretched country of Norway is transmission capacity. So quite a bit of the electricity, the green electricity that we have now from hydropower, but also wind, is captured. And one way of utilizing that is to produce ammonia or hydrogen for export to the continent. It's a far distance, so ship transport is a key for this one. This project here was approved by the government in last year, and it is a combination of producing ammonia from natural gas combined with carbon capture and storage back into an aquasphere in the north of Norway. This is in the polar region, so many challenges when it comes to ship transport to facilitate in tough environment as well. We are also looking at the downstream side, replacing fossil fuels or reducing agents in our steel, cement, petrochemical, and other industries by greener fuels or greener ammonia. So this is one example. TISIR, steel or iron production, using green or blue hydrogen as the reduction agent. So this is one of the projects there as well. And of course, the transport sector is important. The maritime transport first. Land-based transport may be coming a bit later. It looks like the electricity wave of electrical cars in Norway has taken over from the hydrogen cars. But for the maritime sector, we have many initiatives. So we have for example, the Hydra ferry, which is the world's first full hydrogen-fueled car ferry. And we have the Topeka project as well, which is a combination of hydrogen-fueled hydrogen transport vessels by Wilhelmsen. So this Topeka and this is also helping to distribute hydrogen, small-scale distribution along the long coastline of Norway to the various sites of this one. So much activity in that space. We have very strong and long history of technology companies. These are three. Nel Hydrogen, which will present that a bit later, is among the largest in the world, have a big market share on that. So I won't spill all your beans now, Nuno, it's up to you. We have storage, UMO Composites is here, Hexagon. Lattice, sorry I didn't put that in, but he will present another concept for hydrogen storage. And then we have the CCS part. I'll spend the last 5 minutes or so on, or a little bit more on the CCS part, because that is an essential part for Norway to be able to convert our natural gas into blue hydrogen. Capture the carbon from the natural gas and then re-inject it into the seabed. So Norway has been a leader on CCS projects from back in the 1990s. You probably heard about the Sleipner project, which was the world's first million ton per year re-injected into saline aquifer under the seabed. And we have a number of projects now. I'll go a little bit deeper into this one. So we are again building up not only a national value chain for carbon capture and storage, but actually a European and potentially a global one. That is, on the capture side, we are pushing forward with capture technologies from fossil fuel plants, coal power station, natural gas power station, oil power station, etc. But also cement industry, from waste facilities, etc. Transport on ships, we are also leading on CO2 building and contracting CO2 transport vessels. And then, of course, the major project in Norway now, the Northern Lights project, is about being a receiving terminal, not only for Norwegian CO2, but also from Europe, and then re-injecting it permanently under the seabed in the Northern Sea. I don't have time to look into this. I'm happy to share this slide, of course, and talking. But we started in 1996, so we are leading in this CCS space. We have one of the most advanced technology centers in the world when it comes to testing of large-scale capture technology, amine-based, at Mongstad, where we have a number of companies from the Middle East, even South Africa. Japanese has been there as a partner on developing the new capture technology, amine-based, ammonia-based, chilled ammonia-based, membrane, etc. So we have built up a very advanced center for this in Norway as well. And then, of course, it's the Northern Lights project that actually started or is about to be activated now. The first customer for this, let's call it the CO2, this is a receiving terminal for waste, for CO2. One of the first customers is actually Yara. Yara is capturing CO2 from its ammonia plant in Netherlands. The Northern Lights project has contracted 3 vessels to transport it from Netherlands to this receiving station. And then it will be treated and then re-injected or injected into a saline aquifer under the seabed in the Northern Sea. Ambition large, 1.5 million tons starting this year, or building up, and then maybe up to 4 million tons per year. So we have the ambition. Norway has the ambition to be the waste receiving station of Europe. or the resource, whatever you want to call it, but we definitely take a European role in this as well. So we will be a center of the, let's call it the ecosystem in Europe when it comes to CCS, both by pushing technology forward, having facility testing. We use the Technology Center Mongstad to test the capture facility. We do have the receiving terminal to receive CO2 from multiple sources. And many companies, British companies, German, French, are now looking into methods or processes to capture the CO2 and then bring it to Norway by vessels. So it's a big opportunity. Receiving CO2 captured from Korea is a stretch, I think. But at least the technology, the experience, the financial and the regulatory scheme for this, it's not straightforward to bring CO2 across borders, as you know. It's the London protocol that is controlling this. So there are many, many aspects that we are testing out now. So Norway is kind of the pilot for many of the areas when it comes to the CCS. And that is, as you know, closely connected to the production of green ammonia, hydrogen, etc. Yep, so I'm actually on time. It's fantastic timekeeping by myself. So I'll stop there. We then have a very exciting lineup of presenters covering, starting with R&D and the government relations. Christina will pick up a bit on the Norwegian government's incentives and drivers. And then we have a number of technology companies, and then Robert Judd will round it off from DNV more on the regulatory and the standards and safety aspects and stuff like that. So I think I will leave the word to you, Christina. Christina May-Lee is Counselor for Higher Education Research and Innovation at the embassy here in Seoul. And you will talk about the research collaboration and future opportunities within the hydrogen space, I assume.
Thank you for having me. It's very nice to be able to join you here today, with people also traveling all the way from Norway. As mentioned, I work as counselor for higher education, research and innovation at the Norwegian Embassy. And my presentation will focus on Norwegian research and future opportunities related to hydrogen, but in the context of Norwegian ambitions, as stated in government strategies mainly. The main policy documents for hydrogen launched thank you, are the National Hydrogen Strategy launched in 2020 and the Hydrogen Roadmap launched in 2021 as part of the white paper Putting Energy to Work, which is a direct follow-up of this strategy. I will not go into details, but the overall goal is to support technology development through the whole value chain, from research to piloting and demonstration of production, and use of clean hydrogen. And Norway's ambitions towards 2030 is hydrogen as an energy carrier, has been established as a real alternative in the maritime sector, and matures further as a good alternative in industry. And also important, especially in an R&D perspective, is the Energy 21 strategy, where hydrogen is one of 6 prioritized focus areas. Now, this is Norway's strategy for research, development, and commercialization of new climate-friendly energy technologies. And the overall goal is contributing to a coordinated, efficient, and goal-oriented focus on R&D efforts, where increased commitment from the energy industry especially is key. This strategy is prepared by representatives from industry, research institutions, academia, and authorities, and it was first established in 2008, and the current one is from 2018. So, relevant for reaching these goals and ambitions are, of course, funding opportunities and support schemes. And there are already considerable funding supporting the development of hydrogen today, as Per Christer also illustrated with the slide on number of projects. And these projects cover everything from basic research to innovation projects. However, these schemes are found across many different agencies in Norway. So one of the key elements of the mentioned roadmap was a better coordination of hydrogen-relevant funding agencies, which led to the establishment of HAILU, a formal cooperation between 4 main agencies in Norway. And we see today that overall, the public funding level for research, demonstration, and market introduction in general has increased significantly in recent years. And we also see that key energy companies and industries in Norway have committed to several large hydrogen projects. We see especially large investments, as can be seen here, within maritime transport and use of hydrogen in industry the last 5 years. In addition, 2 centers for environment-friendly energy research on hydrogen was established in Norway in 2022 as part of the Norwegian Research Council's Center program. And these centers are called Hydrogen I, focusing on hydrogen and ammonia research and innovation, and High Value, focusing on hydrogen value chain research. And just to emphasize the importance of such research centers and the establishment of them, and how they contribute to connecting partners, this is a very brief overview of their relevant partners, which is quite impressive, of course, and international, and also emphasizes the importance of collaborating with both Norwegian domestic partners, but also international partners. Furthermore, Norway also collaborates in several international arenas for R&D within hydrogen. Again, I will not go into details here, but emphasize an important point. Why are Norway doing this? Well, because international collaboration on R&D is key to solving the world and Norway's energy need for the future, which is also why more Norway-Korea collaboration related to hydrogen is a very interesting avenue for the future. And to sum up, I want to also emphasize some aspects relevant for future cooperation between Norway and Korea. Now, there are 2 especially very relevant MOUs, one between MSIT and the Norwegian Ministry of Education and Research. And related to this MOU, there will be held a first committee meeting in Seoul this October, where, amongst others, topics, renewable energy is on the agenda. And 2, there's an MOU between KTEP and the Norwegian Research Council. And here already several energy-related projects have been funded, and where there was also a recent call that just closed earlier this week. So it will be interesting to see also what projects that will come and be funded from that one. Additionally, I also want to emphasize that Korea, as many of you probably know, are becoming the first Asian country to be associated to Horizon Europe from 2025. And this, of course, will open up many new opportunities for Norwegian and Korean partners to collaborate and to seek funding from a very huge pot of money that goes into several research topics, but also energy and hydrogen. And Norway has also been an associated member for 30 years already and are performing very well in this very competitive program. Norway this year ranks 10th when it comes to received grant money from Horizon Europe. And we, of course, started out with a very similar position as Korea will from 2025. So from the Norwegian side, we would also say that it would be beneficial for Koreans to collaborate with Norway, also for learning about how to participate in these projects, how to be successful in Horizon Europe. And we are also working on launching a bilateral call between NRF and the Norwegian Research Council. This is still under work, but it seems very likely that the two topics for this bilateral call will be AI and hydrogen, meaning that both AI-related projects or hydrogen-related projects, or of course a combination if that is the case, will be qualified for funding here. Again, it's still under work, but the tentative timeline as of now that we're working towards is for the call to be released in December this year and for the project to start up summer of 2025. And again, it's a lot of details that needs to be figured out, but we're aiming to be able to fund around 4 projects. So I would say just stay tuned for more information about this, and hopefully this call will be able to fund some very interesting Korea-Norway collaboration projects also within hydrogen. And finally, on a more general level, I want to emphasize that Korea was included as a strategic partner country for Norway related to higher education, research, and innovation in 2021. That is, in 2021, Korea was included in the Norwegian government's Panorama strategy. And this means that it's a priority for Norway to increase R&D collaboration with Korea, not only related to hydrogen, but also in general, which is an important takeaway as well to keep in mind for Norway-Korea research collaboration. Yes, that was it. Thank you.
I suggest we open the floor for questions or comment if someone has. If not, I would like to ask you for this new collaboration, and the call is very exciting. Is there any specific areas you think in hydrogen that there is a strong interest to collaborate between Japan and Korea?
Japan and Korea?
No, sorry. Korea and Norway. So where am I? Yeah, Norway and Korea, of course.
Well, I'm no expert in the hydrogen research and the hydrogen industry per se, but I will say from a more like government and funding perspective, of course, I think it's important that the industry themselves, of course, are able to define this, but that the system around, both for funding and the government setting the framework, it has to be flexible for the industry actors to move quickly. It's a technology field that's developing quite quickly. To be able to have funding also for collaboration, international collaboration. And I think for the Norway-Korea case, we've seen and been working on both the embassy together also with Innovation Norway for offshore wind. We see several MOUs between research institutions and Norwegian firms and also government agencies. So I think having the right framework there could facilitate interesting topics or important research topics to be financed and developed quite quickly. And also we see that incorporating the element of education or on-the-job training to keep the personnel also up to date with fast-changing technologies is important. And if one can collaborate across countries with that for online courses, training courses, etc., I think that would be very beneficial. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you, Christina. Thank you. Let's move over to the hardcore technology, starting with the upstream side. Nuno Berandino Rodriguez is the tender manager for Nel hydrogen electrolyzer. And you're going to talk about the long history of hydrogen production at Nel in Norway and how it brings technology to the world.
Well, good afternoon. I would start to say thank you to Mr. Per Lund and the Royal Norwegian Embassy for the opportunity to host us. It will be a pleasure. Thank you. So coming from Norway, I'll be speaking about the Norwegian electrolyzers and the 100 years of experience that we have in the industry. So we have focused our strategy in the electrolyzers for a long period. Before we had a broader scope, we were delivering turnkey plants. Today we are much more focused on what we do best and developing the technology going forwards. We have a large experience, and this new strategy from Nel needs very strong partners, okay? Because we focus on the technology to develop it the most efficient and the cheapest, in more cost-efficient solution, but we need partners to take on board the rest of the plant. We are a company, we have a long tradition, but we have been on the stock market since 2014. We are not very big. We have 400 plus employees, very motivated to work on this industry. We are preferred partners for many large companies, also in Korea. And recently, we, or actually for the last 20 years, we have invested very heavily in technology development. So we have people, when look at Nel, they see experience, but we have actually a strong push on the technology side. In some ways, we are also a startup. We have manufacturing facilities in Norway, in Eroya, very close to the site, the Yara site that Per Lund was mentioning. And we have PEM facilities in the US, in Wallingford. Right, so when you think in Norway, and if you have been in Norway, what do you think about? Fish, okay, good. And more? Fjords, yeah. Yeah, fjords also. Anything else? Vikings, okay, that's good. Right, so but you know, Norway, it's very green in the summer and also very white in the winter, right? So there is a lot of water. So in the beginning of all this was this gentleman that you see in the screen, it's Sam Haida. He was a Norwegian engineer, and he studied in Germany for several years. He worked on the railway. He was quite a visionary for his time. So what his initial idea was to produce ammonia. So he, as a clever guy, he looked abroad the scope, and he understood that the world needed food. And for foods, they needed ammonia and fertilizers, right? So he pushed to find a way of producing ammonia and fertilizer and hydrogen in the best way possible. And he looked across, and there was a lot of water, right? So he secured some sites with waterfalls. One in Notodden, where Nel still has a research center, and another in Rjukan that we'll have a look further down. So he started a few companies, or actually he started Norsk Hydro. Norsk for the ones who don't know, it means Norwegian, of course. And the second, hydro, it's the Greek word for water. So he started Norsk Hydro. Norsk Hydro is actually the starting point for some of the larger companies in Norway these days, right? Companies like Yara, Norsk Hydro, and a few others, including Nel. So today we can relate to some Haida's big idea, right? Because our technology and our drive is also to supply electrolyzer equipment for companies that want to produce hydrogen and reduce emissions. So the first time that Norsk Hydro started producing hydrogen was in 2027, or 1927, sorry. And that started actually in Nel in Notodden. So it was actually a very large scale. It was actually, they built the two largest hydrogen production sites in the world, one in Rjukan and the other one in Glomfjord. So as per today, we're still manufacturing electrodes in Eroya. Our facilities, and we'll see some pictures of it, they are fully automated. So we have taken the technology that was almost 100 years old, and we have worked it and improved it for the last almost 100 years. So today in Norway, we still have, in Notodden, we still have a large research center where we are actually developing not only the next generation of atmospheric alkaline, but also the next generation of the pressurized alkaline. Okay. So what you see here actually on the left is the sites in the Rjukan. You'll see this is actually the power station on the left. You will see in the building that has been built. On the right side, you have actually picture from Glomfjord, something that started on the 1950s. So what happened at Rjukan? Rjukan is a quite famous place in Norway. I know that some of you have been there. Rjukan was actually a 167 megawatt plant. There were 6 floors of electrolyzers, something today we still struggle to build 2 floors. Out of this, there was H2 for ammonia and fertilizers, and this was actually operating for more than 40 years. So it is amazing how technology from the 1920s was used to build something like this. And while today we are still looking into ways of doing this again. This was also a very famous site during the Second World War. So initially it was being used to produce heavy water. So in the basement, we were producing heavy water that was being sent to France. And this was actually a quite secret program that was driven to produce nuclear atomic bomb. What happens next? During the Second World War, Germany invades Norway, and they take over this site. So when they start using that heavy water and send it to Germany. So actually, there was a strong program from the Allies to bomb this place, but it is in a very steep valley, so it was very difficult to reach. What they did was they took a few of very, very brave people, and they sent them, and they dropped them, and they had to travel several days until they reached this site and put a bomb on the basement. So they actually bombed the basement, but they didn't destroy the building. So the building continued to operate long time after the bombing. They just stopped the heavy water processing. And actually, it was so much bravery into this that there was a Hollywood movie called The Heroes of Telemark for the ones that are interested. So I'm not sure who is starring the movie, but it's quite quite a good play. Right. So some notes on the heavy water, right? So usually there is only one particle out of every 20 million molecules in heavy water, right? So you need to make it very, very concentrated. You need to achieve 1% concentration in order to do and use it as a bomb, right? And what they are doing in Ryukan, they were processing the water several times until they achieved the concentration required. So it was actually a long process, and there was a lot of water being shipped. What doesn't make much sense, but it was shipped all the way to Germany. So after the bombing, there was also still a lot of water to be sent to Germany. So the Allies, they also sabotage the transportation. They actually sunk not very far from the Ryukan site. There is a big lake. And they sunk a boat that was full of water. Okay. So that building, actually, it went demolished in 77. What is unfortunately, because I think we could still learn quite a few tricks from the building itself. But I think it's very interesting to understand that how technology from the late 1920s was able to produce something that worked for 40 years. One of the other biggest plant productions was in Glomfjord, in north of Norway. So it's actually 135 megawatts, and it worked from the 50s up to the 1988. And do you know why it stopped? Why did they stop producing hydrogen for ammonia in 88? Any guess? Because a decade earlier, they started using gas, natural gas, right? So we are actually, Norway was producing green ammonia for decades, and then it stopped, so we went backwards. Of course, we know that the process is cheaper to use natural gas, right? I think now we need to go back to the old times and use the green energy to produce, to replace the gas. Right? I continue to click on the wrong button. This is like, okay. So I think it's important in linking to the old times, right? That we need to remember the why. And our mission is to fight climate change in hard to abate sectors, right? We see that as a priority. There are many utilizations on the chemical and the processing side for the hydrogen, and it's really important to start with those. So when Nel started, or Nel parents company started, the objective was to produce fertilizer for the world, for a hungry world. But now we face a new challenge. So do you know this gentleman? It says there actually. So I have actually three things in common with this gentleman. Do you know what those are? I'll give you a hint for the first one. I'm sorry? You were? Same country, right? We are both Portuguese. Okay, one, very good. Any other? We studied actually in the same engineering school. So, but he is much older than I am. I'm much younger, so by the way. The third one is we work with the same objective. He's very vocal and very defensive for the climate change. And I think that's one of the drivers to work in NEL. If all of the employees at NEL, they are very proud to work in this industry, and NEL in particular. So I mentioned this, and I think this is one of the core messages. Where we need to work is in hard-to-abate industries. We need to focus on those. We need to provide hydrogen for companies that need them for downstream processes like ammonia or steel or heavy transport solutions. With that in mind, we have actually have a long list of partners, right? Here we try to list some of them. I will not go in details into them. Some of them are our clients. Some others of them are our partners. So I think there is nothing else or better than our clients being vocal about how happy or they are with our solutions. And we see that across the board, right? And we have, for instance, Solar Foods. They've been quite vocal about the reliability of the technology. We have here also a gentleman where we have partnering with on the research side. Nickel Glencore is actually, they are also not only a client, but they are also our partner. And they produce nickel in Kristiansand. So they are a very large company. They have been operating our electrolyzers for several years, and now they are installing a few more. Ovako will have a picture. So Ovako, they have been the pioneers for the production of green steel in Sweden. So as I mentioned, besides Ovako, right? So they have the first fossil-free hydrogen plant, and they are planning to expand this. And the steel industry by itself, it has a massive potential for decarbonization. So the Ovako, they are connected to the grid also, and in a bit like in Norway, in Sweden, the grid has also renewable sources so even when they are using grid electricity, they are still very much on the green side. We have actually a 25 megawatt facility in Sarawak, Osim. What's very interesting with this is they sit in the other side of the world from Norway, but the technology is so reliable that they take care of it themselves with respect to the maintenance, and we never heard from them again. It's very good though. Yeah. It's bad for the aftermarket though. We don't sell much aftermarket with these guys. I think it's worth, we have an ongoing project with a Korean partner. We have Samsung C&T, and it's a first project for us in Korea, and we are very happy to partner with Samsung C&T on this project. So we will work together to make this a success. So we have high expectations, and hopefully this will be a starting point for many other opportunities in Korea and with Korean partners. So we have also projects in the US. We have H2OK ongoing. It's actually the largest projects that we are executing right now. So it's we can skip that, right? So I think let's summarize. And here you have a picture of the factory. I couldn't put many pictures. The pictures need to be sanctioned by legal, and by corporate. So it's not the best picture of the factory, but it's what I could share with you guys. So, but I think the key point on this slide is that we have a very reliable technology, right? And we are building that technology for the future also. Not only, so we have currently 2 platforms, PEM and alkaline, and we are developing a third one. We don't know which one will be the best for the future. What we know is that we'll push the 3 in the same way, and then let the market decide. And there will be some that will be more advantageous in some situations, and some will be the winners on the others. And I think we can finalize saying thank you to our customers, right? So our customers are currently the pioneers of all this industry, and it's a big thank you for driving this. The world needs that. Okay, thank you. Not a difficult question, Pierre. Do you make it easier?
No, well, I had one, but I have a secret one.
Okay.
Another.
Oh, wow.
No, I was supposed to ask you, or I was planning to ask you, what is the future? Where do you see the future development comes in hydrogen production
Okay.
using electrolyzers? But I think you already mentioned that
Yeah.
it's PEM or alkaline. But are you moving into, or is it secret that you're moving into a third area?
We are moving to a third, so that's actually a very recent development. Actually, up until 3 weeks, I couldn't probably say what I'm about to say, but we are developing a third technology. We are developing pressurized alkaline.
All right.
Okay, and we monitoring other industries or other technologies, but we currently don't have an active stake on those.
I think I should also, I'm not sure if it's a question or a comment, but Nel is also engaging in more of the value chain of hydrogen, not only the hydrogen production, but also on distribution, filling stations. Do you want to mention that?
Actually, we have disinvested on the filling station.
So I shouldn't ask that question.
But you're asking about the frontier, right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
next frontier. And I think the next frontier is not so much about technology. I think the next frontier, Pierre, is related with how to execute gigawatt scale plants that are cost effective and that are in that will work and serve the world, right? I think that's where we are sitting now. How to move from small, medium to large scale.
Yeah, exactly. Any questions from the audience? Dovsok will, or we can bring the microphone if someone has a question or a comment. No. Well, I think, thank you for keeping the time as well.
Did I? Okay.
Yeah, you did.
Perfect. Thank you.
It's amazing. Thank you very much again, Nuno. Let's move the next step in the value chain from after production of hydrogen to transport and storage. And we have a good presentation coming up from Yngve Schrøder Tufteland, International Sales Manager from UMO Advanced Composites, talking about cost-effective, safe and lightweight storage and transportation systems for hydrogen.
Per, and thank you to the Norwegian Embassy. Okay, thank you, Per. Thank you to the Norwegian Embassy and to the organizing committee at H2 Meet. So, my name is Yngve Tufteland, and I am International Sales Manager at UMO Advanced Composites. And our niche is what happens after the production of the hydrogen, namely providing the storage and transportation cylinders and modules for compressed hydrogen, i.e. gaseous hydrogen. And we are the leading producer in the world of type 4 cylinders, which means that we use composite to wrap the cylinders, and we are the only manufacturer using glass fiber instead of carbon fiber. So this gives us some unique strong points. As we use composite material, it means that we can bring a high payload of hydrogen in each module compared to the traditional steel tubes that are common in the storage and transportation market. They are lightweight with a long lifetime, and when you compare us to the carbon fiber solutions that are available, we can present them a much more advantageous proposition when it comes to cost. So significantly lower costs for the initial investments compared to carbon fiber. And the total cost of ownership is lower also when you compare it to the traditional steel tubes, although the steel tubes have a lower initial investment, and I'll come back to that. So what surprised me when I started in the hydrogen storage business is that compared to other fuels, the storage of hydrogen, because of the unique characteristics of the hydrogen molecule, is complex, and it can be very costly. The hydrogen presents challenges for the traditional steel solutions because of the degradation that it impacts on the material. With the when hydrogen interacts with steel, it causes embrittlement over time, which leads to weaker walls and increased permeation. And it can therefore easily escape from the vessel itself. So this is one of the challenges for the various solutions that are available. And of course, because of the low natural density of hydrogen, there is a need to compress it before entering storage, as if you want to store and transport any meaningful amounts of hydrogen. So the compression technology in itself, it's a well-known and well-used technology that has been tested over the years, and increased pressure levels are continuously being tested. For the traditional steel solutions, typically pressure for the steel tubes that you see on the Korean roads, the typical pressure is around 200 bar, while the most compact or higher compressed solutions from our carbon fiber competitors can deliver pressure up to 1,000 bar. However, the price for the compression itself, it increases massively when you go over the threshold of around 450 bar. So every kilogram of hydrogen gets much more costly. And as well, the carbon fiber tanks themselves can be very costly. So our mission and our advantage in the market has been that we can propose a solution that balances a high pressure level, that gives you enough of payload and effective handling, without having the very high costs of the carbon fiber solutions that are available. And we have done some studies on this. Small disclaimer: this is only compared to the Type 1 the Type 1 cylinders that we kind of know the price of, where you can see in the red fields. This represents when you have a small amounts of hydrogen transported per year over short distances, then yes, traditional steel tubes can still be competitive. But for instance, if as soon as you I can't really see it myself. So as soon as you transport the hydrogen over a certain distance and get over a certain amount of hydrogen, as you will do now, as hydrogen is being more proliferated in societies, we can present a cost calculation where the total cost of ownership is lower using our solution compared even to the steel tubes that are available in the market now. Yeah, this is about the same. So just to give an example of the modules that we offer, we manufacture the cylinders themselves, and then we assemble them into standard containers for ease of transport and handling. So for instance, for a 20-foot container, 20-foot high cube container, it can deliver around 440 kilograms of hydrogen at 350 bar. And we have larger modules as well, but the largest one that would comply with the Korean road weight limitations, the 40-foot standard container can contain up to 720 kilograms of hydrogen per module. And I know that this is somewhat lower than, for instance, a large competitor on from Korea called Iljin Hysolus, that I'm sure many of you are familiar with, that can deliver around 1 ton of hydrogen using the same sized module. So that means that they have a higher pressure, but I think I'm 100% confident that the price per kilogram of hydrogen stored will be much lower using UMO Advanced Composites glass fiber solutions instead. So this is just an outlook of how the cylinders themselves are built up, with a inner liner using HDPE, a plastic, to contain that contains the hydrogen and hinders permeation. That is wrapped in a thick layer of glass fiber. With a developed system that we have called the leak before burst. We have with a very thick glass fiber and the leak-proof end bosses, we have a system called leak before burst. So even if the cylinders are subject to hard impact, fire, or explosion, the cylinders themselves will not disintegrate violently. They, after some time, they might, or after a very hard impact, they might leak, but they will not burst like in an explosion. Also, just an example of the instrumentation of the modules themselves. This, on the left is an instrumentation of an 18-cylinder 40-foot container. I wanted also to give you some examples of the customers that we are delivering to globally. We are based in Norway, and the factory is in Norway. We're also building another one in China, and our export share is around 95%. So we have delivered to around 35 countries around the world. This is a project in Switzerland for our customer Hydrospider, which provides the hydrogen to the filling stations where the Hyundai Xcient trucks are filled in Switzerland using our containers. A similar project in New Zealand, where our containers are used both for the storage of the hydrogen at the filling stations as well as the distribution where that is needed. This is, it's a little bit different, as they also produce the hydrogen at the filling stations. So the example picture is for their distribution container. Yet again, a similar project that exemplifies that our solution it gets relevant from a rather limited size of the hydrogen production. I believe it's a 1 megawatt pilot site in Norway, where our containers are used for the distribution of hydrogen. But as the hydrogen production plants gets bigger, because of the containerized solution and high pressure, it's very convenient for scaling as well. So, and yet again, for distribution of hydrogen, this is in the UK, where our containers are used for the distribution of hydrogen from the production plant to the bus depot, where the hydrogen-fueled buses in London are filled. And a few moments regarding the maritime industry, of course, since we come from Norway. We are participating in a number of the hydrogen-fueled ship projects that are going on in Norway right now. Some of these are still on the project phase, but they have been commissioned. The one closest in the timeline will probably be the retrofit of the LNG vessel, where the LNG fuel will be replaced by hydrogen using our containers as the fuel system for the ships. And also, I believe it was also in Per's presentation on the hydrogen passenger ferry in northern Norway. That will be the largest hydrogen-fueled ships in the world when they enter service in 2026. And our containers will be mounted on the top of the ferry, so that it will be able to run for 20 hours, something like that, before fueling. And we see that our customers in the maritime, when they consider, of course, for the ship projects, that the energy density is an issue when they move to low and zero emission solutions. And there have been a lot of progress in electric battery-driven ships in Norway during the last couple of decades. But batteries will only take you that far before the battery package becomes too large and heavy. And they're finding that compressed hydrogen can be the most cost-effective alternative for the coastal intermediate routes. And while the liquefied hydrogen, ammonia driven ships will be reserved for the even larger distances. But of course, as for the maritime, as for the land infrastructure, you need to build, you need to have hydrogen available across the route. Yeah, this is again from the hydrogen ferry project, where the production of the hydrogen will happen directly in conjunction with the ferry quay. So the ferry will be able to bunker one time every 24 hours. And there will be 2 of these ferries, 2 sister ships. As well, we have found that our customers see that our containerized glass fiber solution is also very relevant for hydrogen storage, and we can deliver from lower pressure ranges up to 450 bar. So both for storage at production site, storage at after ammonia cracking, and storage at filling stations. So we have now delivered to, I believe, pretty much all continents, maybe excluding Antarctica. And we are eager to collaborate with Korean partners. We have seen here at the fair that the traditional steel solutions are still very dominant, and we think that this is an example of a market that could be ready for some disruption when it comes to transportation and distribution and storage of hydrogen. So, thank you.
Thank you, Yngve. I'm thinking that once the hydrogen economy is evolving in societies like Korea and other places with massive use and distribution, I mean, looking many years ahead, would pipeline structure be a competitor to your tanks as such? I mean, already now there's talk about Norway being a large producer and exporter of hydrogen, and the only feasible good way is a pipeline, as opposed to ship or truck tanks. Is that a challenge for you, or is it an opportunity, or how do you see how hydrogen-based societies distribution of the gas is going to happen?
Thank you. That's a very pertinent question, and I think that everything that enables the hydrogen economy is good for us, even if that means that the large-scale exportation of hydrogen from Norway to Europe will happen with pipelines within maybe 20-25 years. We still have to innovate ourselves, of course, but there will always be a room for let's call it the virtual pipeline, where the structure is not yet in place. This is something that we see even in natural gas distribution, that Even if there are well-developed networks of natural gas pipelines, there is still a need for transportation beyond pipeline, and I think that will be the case with hydrogen pipelines as well.
Thank you. Just on time as well. Excellent. We have in the program a coffee break, 2 o'clock, don't we? Until 2:50. So we'll do that. We'll break, and then we'll reconvene here at about 10 to 3. Thank you. All right. I hope you had a good coffee break. We'll move on. 3 more presentations and then the panel. The first one is also related to transport and storage of hydrogen. It's Yonghwan Cho, R&D engineer from Lattice International. And you will talk about Beyond Limits, innovating cryogenic fluid storage with the Lattice pressure vessel. Please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for the great introduction. My name is Yonghwan Cho. I also go by John in English. A little bit of the brief introduction about the company. We are an engineering company that provides a containment solution by designing the lattice pressure vessel. So we specialize in the design, the custom design of the pressure vessel for storing a cryogenic fluid. So this presentation is going to be short and sweet. So without further ado, I will get right on to it. So I would like to show you guys how we are innovating the cryogenic fluid storage beyond the current limits using our lattice pressure vessel. So lattice pressure vessel, in short LPV, is a fully scalable and free shape containment system. It can be designed to fit in any space or confinement, and it can handle all liquefied gases such as liquid hydrogen, liquid ammonia, liquid carbon dioxide, and liquefied natural gas, with the temperature ranging from ambient to cryogenics. LPV can be designed to withstand the internal pressure load all the way up to 30 bars and beyond. And it is considered to be type C tank equivalent, which means it has a leak-tight primary barrier that does not require any secondary barrier or any safety measures for potential leakage. So as the name suggests, the core strength of LPV, it comes from its unique lattice-like internal design. Now, this internal structure is designed to withstand the internal load with the outer shell, which allows the shell to be shaped as a flat and also have any shape that we would like. As you can see from the top right corner of all the very different tank designs that we have experience of. And also this internal structure, it allows the thickness of the outer shell to be independent of the size of the tank. Now, you can sort of imagine that you can keep on copy-pasting the blocks of the tank to whichever length that we want, basically giving the LPV to have a unlimited scalability. Now, this is not like the conventional way of storage, such as cylindrical and the spherical vessels, which are limited in size because their wall thickness, it also depends on the diameter of the tank. So what exactly are the values of using LPV? Well, first, its ability to design a large-scale, medium-sized pressure vessel. Now, this means that using LPV, it can store all types of cargo and give more flexibility in terms of storing pressure and temperature. And also being able to hold the internal load all the way up to 30 bars. LPV, it typically gives enough holding time for most of its application, so you don't have to worry about any reliquefaction units or boil-off gas. And also, because you can scale up the size, we can typically reduce the total number of tanks required, and that greatly helps with the maintenance and also to reduce any expenses on the auxiliary units, such as pumps and valves and pipings. So ultimately, it gives chance to save in terms of OPEX by reducing the amount of the maintenance required, and also by carrying or storing larger cargo at a time. And also the fact that the LPV can have any shape that we will want, it means that it greatly enhances the space utilization, maximizing the volume efficiency. And also, LPV can be used for practically any application, starting from small scale like trailers and trucks on the road, all the way up to extremely large scale cargo ships and onshore storage tanks. And together, it gives chance to save in terms of capex of an overall project, because now you can reduce the amount of land space required for any plant site, or also by reducing the size of the transporting vessel. So in detail, let's see what LPV can offer for different type of gas. For liquid ammonia, we know very well that it can be stored as a liquid at a room temperature as long as the internal pressure is above 10 bar above pressure. So, which means obviously using LPV, we can store large scale of liquid ammonia without any need for insulation. So whether the liquid ammonia is used as a fuel application or stored and transported as a good, using LPV, we can offer the most volume efficient and easy to operate solution. Now, another great example of using LPV is for the on and offshore storage tanks used in the carbon capture and storage system. Now, we know that in order to avoid the formation of dry ice, the storage of the LCO2, it must stay above the 5 bar of pressure. And also, if you consider all the impurities and the holding times and so on, the design pressure, the mid-range design pressure, about 12 bar is typically preferred. So, currently, for a single tank to have a large scale, and when I say large scale, it's beyond 20,000 cubic meter or even 30,000 cubic meter in scale, with the medium pressure range of 12 bar, is currently only possible using the LPV technology. And thanks to its great space utilization, the use of LPV was shown to have a cost-reducing effect in terms of both capex and opex, as I just mentioned. And then now, just to give you guys a little bit more detailed number, now this is something that was open to public just last week during the Gas Tech. So one of the ongoing projects, the main one that we have right now is with the Samsung Heavy Industry, and we are currently working on to build a 100,000 cubic meter scale, the floating carbon storage units. And then in that particular ship, we were able to bring down the number of the total tanks from 15 to 4 by using LPV. And that had the great capex reducing effect by decreasing the size of the ship basically by 15% for both the length and the breadth of the ship. Now let's talk about liquid hydrogen. Now we know that for storing liquid hydrogen, we don't need such a pressure. However, it needs an extremely low cryogenic temperature, as we all very know. That means that it also needs an extremely high functioning insulation, and conventionally this is done by using a vacuum insulation, which uses a outer jacket surrounding the inner vessel, creating the vacuum space in between. Now, this outer jacket, as the scale goes up, it can be almost as heavy as the inner vessel. And also the fabrication of such vessel, especially for the spherical storage, is very expensive, almost doubling the price compared to the single wall tank. Now, this is the reason why we are developing a new insulation system called VCCS, which stands for the Vacuum Cargo Containment System. So in this system, instead of using a heavy, thick outer jacket, we are using a thin sheet with with a corrugation, and then we can see how it looks at the right bottom corner. Now, this particular design, it allows the outer jacket to contract and expand along with the inner shell without the change in any of its thickness and also design. So it can be scaled up along with the LPV while maintaining all the benefits of the LPV. And also, as you can see, there are polyurethane foam panels in between the jacket and the inner shell. And if we take a more detailed look, there are 3 different layers, and then they are installed by stacking on top of each other using a glue. And on top of them, we have a vacuum membrane that are installed and joined together by a lap joint. Now, this fabrication process is relatively simple, and we are actually expecting the total cost of the installation to be about 20 to 30% of the inner shell. So LPV, together with the VCCS technology, we can offer a large, scalable, and cost-effective solution for storing liquid hydrogen. Matter of fact, we are in the process of fabricating the 200 cubic meter size liquid hydrogen tank using the VCCS insulation. And the fabrication and the testing of this particular tank is to be completed by end of this year and will be available for a showcase for the next half of 2025 until June. So if you are interested, please let us know, and then you can come check it out yourselves. Lastly, I would like to demonstrate the use of LPV on a land application. So when it comes to use of the storage tanks on land, there are multiple important factors, but then two that I'd like to focus on is the transportation part of it, and also the land utilization part. So if you take a look at the the top corner for the cylindrical tanks, in order to scale up the length of the horizontal length of the vessel, it's always long, and that occupies as much space. And also, the transporting such a cylindrical vessel from the manufacturing site to the plant site can be quite difficult as the length of the tank it increase. Now, similar problem with the spherical tanks, because spherical tanks are they're famous for being able to for it must be fabricated or assembled on site. So the transportation is a real issue when it comes to the spherical tanks, and also the manufacturing, the fabrication of the double wall large-scale spherical tanks are notoriously expensive. So using LPV, there are more flexibility towards the dimensioning because it has a free shape. And we can build our LPV so that it is easily transported. And also, it will have a superior space utilization compared to the conventional cylindrical and the spherical vessels. And then just for that, at the left bottom corner, you can just see the sheer difference of the space utilization between the LPV and the cylindrical vessel. So to sum everything up, I believe that we are redefining the pressure vessel technology by breaking down the current limits in terms of the scalability. And also, this flexible shape of LPV, it allows us to custom design all our pressure vessels to meet all the customers' needs. And by doing so, using the increasing the space utilization and volume efficiency, that's how we create the economical value for our customers. And lastly, as a company, we are pushing to serve as a catalyst for the acceleration of renewable energy industry. We have our offices located both in Norway and South Korea, so please let us know, contact us for any inquiries. And then that's everything that I prepared for today. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, John. Very good. I had one thought that I mentioned is the round-trip efficiency for transport of cryogenic gases and having multifunction vessels. For example, let's say between Sarawak and Korea, you have either natural gas and hydrogen coming one way, and you use the same vessel for captured CO2 brought back and injected in Malaysia, say in Sarawak. Right. Is it possible to design tanks and vessels that can have this multiple function? I mean, the gases, the fluids are very different.
Right.
Everything with the temperature and the pressure. But is it possible to do this?
Oh, yes. So the dual-purpose storage vessel is very much possible. And in terms of the design of the tank itself, it's actually quite easy because you can choose the right material for the lower temperature design temperature, and then you can make the structure for the higher design pressure. So in terms of the tank-wise, there is really no problem. But only issue with that plan is because we can have the cargo mix up together. So for such a large-scale tanks, it needs to go through many process for it to be actually operational, such as like emptying up, gassing up, cooling down, and obviously the cleaning of the remaining cargo, and so on, which can take up to like a month and even more. So that might be the challenge of using the LH2 and the LCO2, or basically using a different cargo on the way back and front. But in terms of the design of the tank, that is definitely doable.
All right. Yeah, thank you. So as of now, specialized vessel for each of the fluids. Yes. Yeah, okay, thank you. Very good. We do a little bit of a swap in the program. We move Damien Tan up before you, Robert, for DNV, to just have the technology first, and then the grand finale from DNV after that. So Damien Tan, Global Project and Account Manager from Autronica Fire and Security, talking about fire security solutions to mitigate hydrogen hazards. Thank you.
H2Meet team for inviting us. Okay, as you know, hydrogen is everywhere in our applications. Whether you're talking about food processing, refinery, petroleum, okay, even this electronics, everything uses or hydrogen has a part in it. So hydrogen is something that is always a part of our life. Okay. So let me introduce Autronica. Autronica is a global manufacturer of fire and gas detection. Okay, what we do is we help customers to protect their facilities, just like any other buildings that you have where you have a smoke detector. So before they can certify a plant operational, they need to have some kind of fire and gas safety system. And Autronica is a global manufacturer in this arena. So Autronica is actually in Norway, and they manufacture the addressable fire and gas systems. But we also have another factory that is the US that specializes in special hazard products that are mixing the flame detectors as well as the toxic gas detectors. And we have engineering centers that are in Norway as well as in the US. So what we do here is we actually do live tests on whatever hazards that the customer have. So for example, if a customer has an application where they require the detector to be able to withstand to a certain temperature, then and the engineers here, the application engineers here, that they will do the test, whether is it on flame or is it on gas detection. Okay, so we have all the expertise. We also do what we call a live video broadcast, where we invite clients, okay, to come into our factory, and if they can't do it, like for example in COVID, so we actually broadcast this test to them, okay. So we provide, in Ultronica, we provide the total solution. So from design to execution. So we have engineers that will execute the installation together with the client. Okay, I think DMV, just now I saw one lady, she was asking me like fire and gas mapping. Okay, so we don't per se do fire and gas mapping, but we do get our engineers involved in the design with a client, and we assist them in the fire and gas mapping process. Okay, so Ultronica is actually a one-stop solution provider for our customers' fire safety, and we provide the solution. So we do have controllers. Yeah, we have fire panel control, just like any other fire alarm panel, but these are sealed too, okay, with the certification for safety integrity, which is required in most of the petrochemical plants that our customers are in. Okay, and our controllers have dual safety. That means to say that should one controller, or even the cables are bi-directional, but even if one cable breaks, another controller immediately takes over. So you have full redundancy on the system. As you know, this is a fire gas system. You cannot allow the system to fail, because if the system fails, the production stops. And if production stops, it costs the customer a lot of money. So these are some of the safety designs that we have integrated inside. And we also have all on our smoke detectors, we have what we call the dynamic filter, that we actually detects any false alarm causes that can cause the detector to go in alarm. Okay, and that is some of the features that we added. And also we have what we call a self-test or self-verify, where all our detectors are able to self-test itself without someone going there to interrogate. And we are seeing more of our customers, especially the offshore platform customers. It is very expensive. Even the vessels, they try not to have too many people on board. Okay, because first thing is safety, second thing is also an expensive process. So they try to have the operation done automatically by itself. So they also need to have the fire and gas detection system to be able to operate in an unmanned situation. So let me talk about hydrogen. Okay, like I mentioned, hydrogen is something that is a part of our lives. Okay, and because hydrogen is a very flammable gas, and we always hear, or even in our school days, when we're doing our science project, you know, everybody tells, oh, hydrogen is so dangerous, you have to be careful. And it's true, it is very dangerous. Okay, and the reason why it's dangerous is because hydrogen is actually odorless, it's tasteless, you won't even know if there's a leak, you can smell it. Okay, and the worst is that even if there is a fire, okay, you cannot even see the fire, because hydrogen burns and gives out water rather than carbon. You know, most of the fires that you see will give out black smokes, not hydrogen. You will not be able to see it. And especially when there's a hydrogen fire, okay, when you walk into a plant and it is high, you just see a simmering, okay, like you see on a hot day, when you look at a bus, then you see these waves coming out, and that's what you see on hydrogen fire. And because it doesn't burned with any radiant heat. You won't even know until you walk right into it. Okay, so I know that in many of our customers in the process or in a petrochemical plant, what they do is they actually have a broom, literally a broom, and they sweep across the broom. And if the broom catches fire, then they know that there is a hydrogen fire in there. But of course, with the technology we have, we can actually see the fire and warn the customers. So I haven't seen. Okay, if you look at the range of flammability, now under NFPA 72, hydrogen is number 4, and that is the most flammable gas. Okay, and if you look at the LEL and FL, that's the lowest explosive level. That means to say that anything above 4%, okay, even if you have an ignition source, hydrogen doesn't get any fire. Okay, and the U is the UEL is the upper explosive level. So at 74%, anything above 74%, again, it is so concentrated, even if you have an ignition source, hydrogen doesn't catch fire, okay, or doesn't explode up. Okay, but if you look at the whole range from 4% to 74%, it's a very, very wide range where hydrogen is a hazard. Okay, as a higher fire hazard. So that's where we are helping our customers to mitigate even before it goes to 4%. Okay. And as you know, hydrogen is very light. Okay, so even if it's an outdoor, okay, customers may think that, oh, okay, like for example, a hydrogen fueling station. Okay, the gas just goes up. But what if you have a roof on top? Okay, it is a barrier. The gas floats up, and it will look for a place, a confined place, and it starts to build up. And in this kind of situation, the wider the gas, okay, or the gas cloud is, the bigger the explosion is going to be. Okay. So we look at some of the applications where you just heard from Nail Hydrogen, where they have electrolyzers that build manufactures this hydrogen, and also from Lattice, they do the transportation, or they have the containers that are used to store the hydrogen. Okay, so these are some of the applications that our customers have, and in our own applications, is nowadays customers are looking into having hydrogen, okay, to electrify their vehicles. Okay, and you have planes, okay, planes, you have vessels, okay, these are, but the next one will be car. Because if you talk about electric cars, okay, it takes maybe 20 minutes, or even the minimum is 15 minutes. You know, if you drive a normal a petroleum car or diesel car, you go in there and you pump there, 5 minutes already, a very, very long time for you. Okay, but electric car, you have to leave your car there and charge it for anywhere between 15 to 30 minutes, or even for 2 hours. Then you go shopping. You know, you have to do that. But with hydrogen, you don't need. You basically go in and top it up as if like you're the vehicle, and then the hydrogen will power the car. And this is something that the Japanese are really driving. I remember 2 years ago, or 4 years ago, when they had the Olympics at Japan, they actually drive this, where they have all their vehicles, buses as well as cars, that ferry all these Olympians and all these sportsmen. They're all using hydrogen cars. Okay. So hydrogen is something that we need to have if we are looking at something that is sustainable and is going to protect our environment. You know, the other alternative is nuclear, and nobody likes nuclear. So hydrogen is really the alternative for us. So there are codes and standards. Maybe Mr. Robert Rupp will explain on the DNV side, but especially on the safety side. Okay, you have NFPA 2, okay, for hydrogen, and we have the FM Global. Okay, so all our detectors, we have the FM 3260. which is on the flame detectors. And also we have the IEC, which governs the electrical apparatus that are used in hazardous environment. So we have those approvals. It's just that on hydrogen, unfortunately, there is only like one page, okay? So they're learning, okay, and they see the need, and they're trying to change the standards that are on hydrogen. So as we know, okay, there are certain key points that these standards are working on, and it will be updated in 2026. So if you look at over here at the bottom here, okay, currently they're using UV-IR for detection. Maybe later in our sites I'll explain to you. So there are certain disadvantage on such technology. So there is a better technology where you're using full infrared, okay, and that's where Ultronica has that solution. We have both UV-IR, okay, but we have the latest technology that using fully multi-spectrum IR detectors to see hydrogen fire. So these are some things that the standards are changing and is coming in. Okay, so we have seen how hydrogen is going to be part of our life, okay, and it is something, okay, there is always a danger. In anything, there is always something that we need to take care of, okay, and hydrogen is something that we is part of our life and we have to accept it, but we need to understand how this gas moves, how this gas is going to be part of our life, but yet we can use it safely. And one of the things that we have is actually, in Ultronica, we have the technology to detect all these fires. Okay, we are talking about in the processing plant. So for example, in the electrolyzer, that you can have flame detectors that are surrounding the electrolyzers. And in event, okay, if you look at over here, okay, this is because we have a shield behind. But if I were to lift up the shield and you're looking at like a bright sunny day, I can tell you this fire is transparent. There's no way you can see that there's a fire there. But these detectors are built in a way that they are looking out, not at the carbon dioxide is being produced. As I mentioned, when hydrogen burns, it doesn't burn with carbon. It actually gives out water, right? So that's why it's something that is good for our environment. And these detectors are designed to detect when there's a hydrogen fire, and it will sound the alarm. Now, normally for flame detectors, the client or most of our customers are using is only the last stage. That means to say that they've not detected anything, and once it becomes a fire, these are the flame detectors that will shut down the entire plant. Okay. So as I mentioned to you, so the difference in technology in UV IR type, which currently most of the clients are using, is that in UV IR, the distance of detecting the hydrogen is very, very short. Okay, we are talking about maybe 10 to 15 meters maximum. Okay, but with the IR type that Ultronica has, okay, you can look at the distance is easily, on axis means if the flame, okay, a flame detector is not exactly as looking at fire, okay, it's looking at the infrared that is coming out from the fire or is being emitted by the fire. So when I'm saying on axis, it's like I'm looking at you, but off axis, I'm looking at the side of mine. So I can see someone that's walking in, okay, but it's just that I don't see it as far as if I'm looking it directly. So a flame detector works exactly in the same manner. So it looks out for the hydrogen fire. Okay, and as I mentioned to you, most of our detectors have its own self-check, all these features that are required. Okay, it has data logging also. So these are requirements for customers. Although these detectors, they do feedback the information back to a central controller. Okay, but it itself locally, it also has data logging. So this also will aid in times when there's a problem with the detector. our service engineers, they go down, they can actually pull out all this information, and they can actually see what the detector saw, you know. And also we have for gas detection. So as I mentioned to you, when flame detector comes in, it's always the last stage, okay, of a gas leak. So we do have gas detectors that smells, that detects when there is a gas, when there's a hydrogen leak. And that is important because you want to know, as I mentioned to you, hydrogen is odorless. So as a human, we will not be able to detect. In fact, you know, like if you look at our the petrol that's used for car, right, benzene, they actually add some deodorizer inside there so that when you feel it, you can smell the petroleum in your car. Okay. Unfortunately, for hydrogen, because it's such a small molecule, if you add any of this any deon that you could put inside so that you can add some smell to it so that you know that hydrogen is there. But because hydrogen is so light, the moment it's released, it immediately floats up, okay, and immediately gets diluted even before you can smell it. And like I said, just a small little percent of hydrogen mixed with air, you can have a very bad catastrophic explosion, okay. So we have the gas detectors, we call this the catalytic bead, and these detectors are used to detect hydrogen, okay. So currently it is used to detect, in fact, any type of combustible gases, but in nowadays we have other technologies like the infrared to detect combustible gases, but infrared can only be used for hydrocarbon gases, unfortunately not for hydrogen. So for hydrogen, it's always catalytic gas. So things like battery rooms, they use this kind of catalytic gas detectors. And we also have the hydrogen gas detectors that are detected in the ppm level. These are, at ppm level, is very, very low. You know, if you look at the previous slide, I'm looking at we are detecting in the LEL level, which I just now mentioned to you, 4% as well. So we are detecting in the explosive level, okay, and this is 1% is 10,000 ppm, okay. So if you look at for the electrochemical type, we are actually detecting anywhere from 0 to 1,000. So this is actually detecting the hydrogen leak at a very, very low concentration. So this is a second type of detectors that we have implement for our customers. And the third type of detector, okay, this detector is very special. It doesn't smell. What it does is that it listens. Okay, it listens to any high pressure leak. And if any gas that is leaking and is high pressure, it will emit ultrasonic, okay, which you and I will not be able to pick up. Okay, and in a plant, it is so noisy, even if there's a leak, no one can pick up. Most of the time, the customers will see a white cloud. Then they know there's some, you know, like for example, methane. Then they know, oh, there's a leak, you see. But for hydrogen, you cannot see, right? So we also use hydrogen we use this, what we call the ultrasonic gas leak detector to detect or to listen to a gas leak, okay? And it has a very wide coverage, up to even 28 meters in diameter. Okay, so one detector can cover a very big area. And for hydrogen applications, we usually recommend customer to include one of these detectors because it detects even the smallest leak. Okay, even if the leak hole size is 2 mm in size, and the pressure is about maybe at least 10 bar, okay, these detectors will pick it up even at 28 meters away, okay. And I've included this chart here, okay. So just to let you know that our ultrasonic gas detectors comes with the software to be able to see what you cannot hear. Because as I say, ultrasonic cannot hear. But the customer is able to see. So this is actually two. One is, this is methane, and this is hydrogen. So the customer can actually differentiate between the two gases, okay? And they can actually, they can teach the detector to listen to the type of gas that they want to detect. Okay, and this allows them to mitigate. So if you look at the whole thing that we have from Ultronica, we actually help the customer to see the fire, to smell the gas, and also to be able to listen. So it's just like a human. Okay, but all these things will be feedback to a controller, which we also provide for our customers. So we have system solutions where we can link up all our detectors, okay, and then to all these controllers or fire alarm controllers. And these fire controllers will have the cause and effect that we design together with the customers, and then they can use this to mitigate the potential of a hydrogen hazard. This is my last slide.
Thank you, Damien. So hydrogen and ammonia has been used in industry and
Yes.
in many applications for ages.
Yes.
And there has been mishaps and accidents. But I mean, going forward now, it will be more widely used in
Yes.
daily applications.
Yes.
Everything from filling vessels
Yes.
to household applications and mixing in city gas and stuff. Do you foresee? I mean, and that's where the human error accidents happen. You know, when the non-technical skilled engineers and others are operating that. When, you know, me and you are filling our hydrogen car in the gas station. Do you see that the number of accidents by human error will increase, and also, of course, increase the need for your sensors and systems?
Yes. So okay, good question. First, the two gases, one is ammonia and one is hydrogen. Ammonia, I guarantee you can smell it, but if it comes in a very high concentration, your nose becomes desensitized, so you can't smell it. But many times, most people can smell it. It's a rotten egg, right? Or like H2S. So you can smell a very heavy, pungent smell. Okay, and hydrogen is very toxic when it's at a high value. So we do have gas detectors that does this, especially when our customers are it's a fertilizer plant. For hydrogen, yes, and as I mentioned to you, it is going to be part of our life, and we need to be able to understand that when we are handling hydrogen, there is a certain aspect of safety. I don't know of many accidents from hydrogen, but of course there's one that is in Korea recently in 2019. I don't know whether they have a slide up. Can I have my slide back? Yep, correct. Okay. Yeah. So this was an explosion tank, and it is actually on an electrolyzer and then on storage tank. So there is an explosion. It happened in Gangneung in 2019, and 2 people actually died. Okay, but if you look at when they did the investigation, okay, there's here the cause of it is actually a spark that happened. Okay, that happened onto the hydrogen buffer tank, and that's why there's explosion. Okay, but the investigation found out that it's actually due to human failure or human negligence. So, like many of these accidents, okay, it is always human that causes this. Okay, but if you have a mitigation system like the Ultronica system in there with flame detectors and gas detectors, as I mentioned to you, you can actually mitigate the risk. And many of times, our customers are in a very hazardous environment where you talk about oil and gas production. That's where our detectors are there to save lives. So whoever that works in there, they will go back to a family safe. And this is something that Ultronica believes in it. So again, yeah, accidents will happen, but if we learn to mitigate and understand the dangers, we can actually live with this technology or with this hydrogen and use it as part of our technology.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Damien. I like, possibly, if we have time, we'd like to revisit this during the panel as well. Also ask the other panelists on their views on the perceived risks and the real risk. And I think those are not the same. Robert Judd, the last speaker now before the panel, group leader for hydrogen and low carbon fuels and CCUS, NH2 and CCS. Anything else, Robert? No, that's it. For DNV, Energy Systems, challenges in establishing the hydrogen and ammonia. No, that's the, yes, transport. All right, so challenges in developing the hydrogen and ammonia supply chain, an Asian case study. Rob.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me? Good, thank you. And thanks, Per, for the introduction. Thank you for... Yeah, it's... Okay. Is that better? Yes. Well, I can hear myself now. That really is disconcerting. Okay, yeah, thanks, and thanks to the organisers. Thanks for Innovation Norway, and it's good to be back in Korea. And I realise I'm finishing the day off, and we've got the reception coming very soon, I think. So I'll try not to go too much over time. But knowing me, let's see. Okay, yeah. So I am working for DNV in Singapore. I kind of look after the development of the hydrogen projects within the sort of Asian part of Singapore, mostly Southeast Asia, Korea, Japan, Taiwan. Specifically, and I'm being in Singapore. Singapore has got a very ambitious roadmap for introduction of hydrogen and ammonia, and I think this is really a good case study. And I'll keep coming back to the Singapore picture. I mean, it's not that I will focus entirely on Singapore, but I think the developments in Singapore are a good illustrator of what's happening and what needs to happen and what challenges need to be addressed in terms of moving forward. I've only been talking for 10 seconds according to that, which is great. Yeah, so a bit about DNV. Yeah, we are very active in the hydrogen, low carbon fuel CCUS segment. We have across the business around about 11,000 experts. They're not all working on hydrogen, I promise you. But we've also been around this year for 160 years. It's our 160th birthday. It's almost as old as me. And importantly, we invest 5% of our total revenue in research, and we have lots of labs around the world, and we do lots of testing, and we do lots of developments that support the next generation technologies, but also to develop standards. And we are responsible for the development of many industry standards, and hydrogen and ammonia is an area where a lot of the work we're doing in joint industry projects, which is the bit you'll see on the bottom left there, the mention of joint industry projects. We bring together all the key players who are trying to develop these or technologies in the segment in order to work together and to develop standards through research at our labs. And you see 24 labs around the world. And we've been involved in around about 300 projects, carbon capture projects over the last few years, or sorry, over the last decade or so. The number of hydrogen projects is accelerating all the time. I'm finding it very hard to keep up with a number of sort of initiatives, and they're all in a very different place wherever you go in the world, and the challenges are all similar but different, and that's the issue. And just sort of, if I go on to the issue of developing standards and particularly developing the safety case for hydrogen, you'll see in the background there, that is our open lab, our testing facility at Spade Adam in the UK, and you'll see in the foreground there, there's a structure called Future Grid, which is actually a full-scale hydrogen sort of transmission, distribution and use network, which we're using to develop the safety case for hydrogen in the UK. but that will be socialized. And I know we've had lots of Korean visitors over the last year. We're going to get lots more Korean visitors over the next year, as I understand. It's a bit of a showcase for the development of the kind of standards and getting over some of the issues related to the use of hydrogen and developing the knowledge that's needed to develop the standards and to implement the technology. Just in terms of what the challenges are, I mean, safety and testing I've mentioned is something that industry and governments are focusing on. And, you know, it's really important that we've just been hearing a lot this afternoon about the challenges of safety, both for hydrogen and ammonia, and they're very different. But it's different from natural gas, but it can be managed and it can be mitigated. The infrastructure for hydrogen and ammonia can be similar to natural gas, but it can be very different, and it needs adaptation at the very least, and potentially rebuilding in many other cases. And production also needs to be decarbonised, and it can be green or blue or whatever colour you want, but actually it's about carbon intensity, and it's about understanding what decarbonisation means. What is the benchmark you use to determine decarbonisation, and what technologies you're using, and what criteria are you trying to define that against? Which leads us into policy and strategy, because policy is very, very important to enable the implementation, and policy and strategy differ across the world because everyone's in a different place, everyone's got different challenges, every country's got its own roadmap. It has to happen in a just way that takes people along with it. You can't impose these changes, these policies. We have to understand how best to do this across the globe and in different jurisdictions with, with different advantages and disadvantages. And I think Singapore is a case in point where the idea of a hard-to-address sector is slightly different in Singapore, perhaps, and maybe in Korea, to what you might normally assume to be a hard-to-abate. We normally think of industrial heat, aviation, green steel, iron ore, maritime. In fact, the definition differs from country to country. And if we go on to Singapore, and I'll come back to Singapore in a minute, actually, when you're very energy poor and you don't have that many of your own options with regard to your indigenous energy, you have to choose options to bring in energy. And hydrogen is potentially a major element of that future roadmap for decarbonisation and can be used in sectors such as power generation. And I think we're seeing both in Korea and in Singapore the potential use of hydrogen in power generation perhaps to a greater extent than it would be in places like Europe, where there's more of a focus on things like industrial decarbonisation. So hard to abate sectors, really important that we use hydrogen the only way we need to, but hard to abate sectors do differ in terms of definition from one place to the next. And there are a number of barriers that we need to overcome. And first of all is the cost, of course. I mean, we hear that hydrogen is expensive. How do you persuade people to use hydrogen when it costs more than the fuel they're using at the moment? And that kind of brings us all the way around the loop in the end, because how do you define that cost and how do you make that affordable? And what policies do you need in place to make it affordable? Demand and competition, there's a lot of competition between hydrogen and other decarbonised fuels. I mean, renewable electricity, of course, is the key one, but there are different sort of production methodologies for hydrogen, and all of them are potentially competing against each other in the value chain. And which one is best is not just a function of where you are, but it's a function of when you are, because these things change as a function of time. Electrolyzers will get cheaper. There will be more potential for carbon capture in the future. These are nascent technologies, and some will win in some cases, but others will win in other cases. Technology and manufacturing, of course, we do need to develop new technologies. There's a lot of need for research. Number 4 there, safety and hazards. We have to make sure that we understand how to manage safety, how to mitigate hazards, and how to develop the standards that will allow us to build this industry at a global level. And the infrastructure side, I mentioned infrastructure. There is a need for new infrastructure. We can repurpose old infrastructure. Say a little bit about what DNV is doing in that regard later. And finally, standards and certification. We do need standards. We need guarantees of origin. We need to ensure that we have a level playing field so that people understand the commodity they're exporting and using, exporting, using. How do you define what the value of that is in carbon terms? And each country at the moment has a different way of defining that, which is a challenge. and the rules are not normally obvious. So in terms of managing risk, I mean, some of the things that DNV are doing, we've developed a number or a suite of recommended practices and service specifications that allow us to, for example, look at the certification of the equipment, and this is really component level electrolyzers. We have through a joint industry project which finished recently, we can go through a process of giving confidence in the performance of electrolyzer systems. We can certify electrolyzer systems and enable you to understand where your own product sits in the suite of other products, because there is no current, apart from this DNV standard, there is no obvious way of determining what the sort of apples for apples performance of a system is. And at the carbon intensity level, DNV SE 0654, I think it says there at the top, this is where we look at the attribute claims, and it's really important that if you're making hydrogen in one part of the world and exporting it to another part of the world, and you think it's green, because green or renewable hydrogen has a number of definitions depending on not just where you're making it, but where you're taking it. If you go to Europe and your production of green hydrogen doesn't match the electricity production in a time way, a temporal way, and it's not additional, it's actually, if it's replacing, the electricity is replacing using other electricity, and it's not there as an additional commodity, as an additional production method. Additionality and temporal matching are very, very important, and that is, within the European directive and the European acts, it's very important to recognise that these things are quite complex. So what DNV can do is advise on whether or not your production matches your off-takers' requirements in terms of export market and import market. And that's something that we're exploring with many, many clients around the world at the moment. How you can validate the claims that have been made by projects, ensure your project up front meets the requirements of your market. This is really, really important, because getting that standard right when every country has a different way of defining it's the threshold that's allowed for hydrogen is very, very important. And just as sort of a whole project level, bringing all that together, at a project-specific level, bringing together all these recommended practices, we can look to certify the validity of a complete project, whether it's a hydrogen or an ammonia project, any low-carbon project. We can look at how that meets the decarbonisation criteria, how it meets the requirements of a specific jurisdiction, and ensure, through sort of a technology verification process, that project would meet the requirements of the market that you're exporting to. So that's just a sort of summary of the suite of risk-related products or specifications that DNV is working with. And you'll see on the right there that the repurposing of pipelines is also an area that we're very heavily involved in. I'll say a little bit more about that later. And we do have a service specification looking at how you will repurpose a pipeline for CO2 or hydrogen use. And just going back to Singapore, the Singapore roadmap requires the use of 50% hydrogen in power generation, or suggests that there will be 50% hydrogen in power generation by 2050, and there'll be a lot of use in other sectors. There's a lot of ammonia potentially could be used in the maritime sector. Singapore bunkers, I think, 20% plus of the world's maritime fuel, and when that decarbonizes, of course, that's a huge potential lost market for Singapore, so it needs to understand how that's going to happen, and ammonia is not only potentially a fuel for the maritime sector, but could also be a power generation fuel. So Singapore currently has a Pathfinder project, which is at sort of RFQ stage, and 2 consortia are leading the way on that to understand how you would establish an ammonia supply chain for a 40 megawatt power generation project, but also for bunkering for maritime fuel and maritime purposes. So the issues really are looking at things like LCOA, the lowest cost of ammonia, lowest cost of hydrogen. How do you optimize cost? How do you develop the infrastructure for ammonia and hydrogen? And how do you ensure safety? We have very large volumes that we need to transport. We need to make sure that, if you go back to a country like Singapore where space is very limited, there is very high density population. It's very difficult to run pipelines across a country, new pipelines across a country, or transport these commodities or store these commodities in a country which is actually very, very densely populated. So you need to ensure the safety criteria are met. And that requires the use of new regulatory and policy frameworks. We need to make sure we both minimize risk, but also incentivize the demand, because quite often, lots of producers out there waiting to make hydrogen ammonia, but getting people to use it is actually more of an issue right now. And that, I think, is what's stalling a lot of the projects, that linking that supply and demand, and that requires not just an understanding of all the standards, but also ensuring that we can give confidence in long-term off-takers through the right sort of contracts, the right sort of arrangements, the right sort of standards need to be in place. So all of this all links together in terms of the supply chain. And just again, from a Singapore point of view, maintaining security supply is really, really important. And this requires a very detailed analysis and planning and across a wide variety of stakeholder groups. We're involved in a number of projects in Singapore, some of which I can talk about and some of which I can't. But there are many use cases, as I say, across industry, maritime. Aviation, of course, is very important in terms of sustainable aviation fuels and power generation. But there's a lot of variation in the way that these will need to be phased in. There are many production pathways, but the landed cost, again, depends on the application, depends on economies of scale, and we don't really know what those economies of scale will look like yet. And there are many constraints, as I said, due to space and safety considerations. So the existing infrastructure can be repurposed, but maintaining security supply while you do that is a challenge. Because, of course, if you start using existing infrastructure for something else and it doesn't really work out, then you have a bit of a problem. So you need to have mitigation plans and risk management plans in place. And just going back to a few of the projects we've been working on, I mean, we did some work with the Singapore government. There were questions asked about the Ammonia Pathfinder project and whether ammonia is really safe. And DNV were called in by one of the companies involved to present to the government and to discuss how our understanding of ammonia, and some of that is based on sort of full-scale release experiments at Spade Adam. The Spade Adam site, you'll see the picture there at the bottom, is an ammonia release, which was then modelled in terms of what the implications would be for larger scale releases. We were able to, I think, convince the organisations that we were talking to that the risks of ammonia could be mitigated, that there are risks, but once you understand what they are, you can deal with them. So that was the start. Can you really use ammonia? And then, can you store it? And can you bunker it? And work we've done for other clients, I mean, we've looked at the potential for storage of ammonia in Singapore and looked at specific sites and done risk assessments on those sites. Also done assessments of the potential for bunkering, both ship to ship, ship to shore, et cetera, coming up with the optimum configuration, the optimum sites. So yeah, basically you can bunker ammonia, even in an environment like Singapore where there are clearly constraints in terms of space. And finally, I mean, just another piece of work that ended relatively recently, there is the first dual-fueled ammonia ship, the Fortescue Green Pioneer, which DNV was involved in the QRA for, and ensuring that a site could be selected for fueling and ultimately ensuring with the input of likes of Major Hazard Department and the Maritime Port Authority that we could select a site for commissioning, and it was effectively safe for bunkering, and that bunkering study followed on from the other work we've been doing for the Global Centre for Maritime Decarbonisation, where we were able to understand the risks and mitigate the risks of bunkering ammonia within Singapore. So all these are applicable beyond Singapore, of course, but it was, it's notable that these projects are moving forward very, very quickly there. Just going back to pipelines, and of course, when we hydrogen, we're likely to be transporting through pipelines, although obviously high-pressure composite vessels will play a major role as well, but at the end of the pipelines more likely. But there will be a need for repurposing pipelines, and we do a lot of work with clients looking at repurposing network readiness, and that covers all the things from integrity assessment to sort of safety, equipment, operational assessment, looking at capacity issues, because of course the energy density of hydrogen is significantly less, 3 times less or more than for natural gas. And we can go through the whole process of looking at your existing network, and repurposing, and coming through up with recommendations for how that repurposing would occur for anything from 5% hydrogen all the way up to 100% hydrogen. And just going to go back one. I think, yeah, and just a Korean example there, we are working with KOGAS, and we've been working with KOGAS for the last 2 years to understand, help KOGAS understand how you would repurpose, or how they would repurpose their existing network to blend potentially up to 30% hydrogen, with, again, the idea that ultimately the hydrogen blend could be fed to a power station, alongside potentially 100% hydrogen network, which would allow you to take that percentage blend even higher within those power stations and ultimately up to 100%. So that's something we're doing in Korea. Back to Singapore, and this kind of starts to bring things together in terms of what the ultimate regulatory and technical requirements are. We're working with the regulator, a project we started this year. It's one of the biggest projects we've done in the hydrogen space, actually, in this part of the world, but really helping them to understand what the implications are for taking their existing network towards a more diversified gas network, both for sort of different LNGs, but also for blends of hydrogen. What that would mean for their power generation fleet. How you would take that power generation fleet from where it is now to where it needs to be, and what regulations you would need to change. For example, fuel changeover is a major issue when it comes to managing a power generation plant. If you lose access to your existing fuel, how do you change that fuel? And of course, fuel changeover requirements will change as you introduce hydrogen, and the survivability of those GenCos those turbines will change. So all of these issues rolling into one will help us to recommend to the Singapore government what changes they need to make to regulations, what changes they need to make to infrastructure, what changes they need to make to network planning, all the emergency procedures, all the maintenance procedures, all rolled into one. The real implementation of hydrogen in an existing network, and potentially is there a need for a second hydrogen network, a new one, and there probably is. But yeah, these regulatory changes and regulatory requirements are key to making things happen. And just to sort of back to the GenCo side of things, we've also done, this wasn't in Singapore, but it was in Southeast Asia for a GenCo, looking at the real requirements for an existing fleet. What does hydrogen ready mean? We hear a lot of turbines are hydrogen ready, but they're not really, not straight out of the box. You need to do a lot of infrastructure changes at the turbine in order to make them hydrogen ready. They can be, but what are the risks of doing that? And from an infrastructure point of view, what would that cost, and how easy would that be? And can we realistically do that? What would you then need to do in order to be able to upgrade that to a sort of higher hydrogen percentage? Realistically, most OEMs won't say, well, actually, you can go to 30%. They'll say at the moment 5%, but if you do this, you might be able to go to 10, 20, 30%. And every OEM has a different sort of story and a different reason for that story. And understanding that at an individual level is really, really important. And we've done this work, and I think this, again, is very applicable to Singapore. It's very applicable potentially to Korea as well. And this is a very important way of taking forward the potential for hydrogen in power generation. So just sort of finalizing this in terms of coming back to Singapore, of course, there are many choices Singapore has to make. Does it repurpose its pipelines? Does it use new pipelines? Does it blend, or does it go straight to full hydrogen or ammonia? Does it phase or go concurrently, do everything at once, which is very risky, of course? Do we have centralized or decentralized infrastructure for production and use? Single carrier versus multi-carrier. We hear lots of potential options for hydrogen derivatives. And we didn't mention ammonia, of course, but do we crack ammonia or can we burn it directly? And again, the challenges are the energy capacity of existing infrastructure will change because of the issues of hydrogen energy density. There are real space constraints. Storage requires a lot more space than LNG. The technology readiness levels are very low relative to LNG for hydrogen and ammonia, and particularly for cracking technologies, but they are coming along quite quickly. And of course, the safety requirements and risk contours are very different and need to be assessed on a case-by-case basis. These are the kind of challenges that need to be addressed. I know I've gone over my 20 minutes. Yes. So thank you for listening, and I'm happy to try and answer any of the difficult questions that I know Per is going to try and ask me.
I have to put the chairs on the On the floor for the panel, I'd like to call upon the panelists as well. We have about 15, 20 minutes for a round. I won't ask you the question now. I'd rather ask it when we are as part of the panel discussion, Robert. But thank you very much for your presentation so far. Very comprehensive and using Singapore as a use case. Also very relevant for this market. So can I just ask?
So we to bring our chairs with us.
Yeah, you don't have to bring them. Yeah, I'll use this, and then there's 1, 2, maybe one for each table, is it? Right, so we'll have another about 15 minutes before the networking reception, which is in the next room. I'd like to start with following up a little bit on Robert's presentation on the challenges moving into market, and that goes for almost everyone, I think. And that is one of the challenges, is to bring technology that is developed in let's say Europe or America and other places, bring it into new markets and addressing the challenges of the domestic standards, regulations, law, etc. What's your experience, for example, in Asian markets? Let's say use Korea or maybe Japan as a case. Maybe I could start with Yngve on bringing your technology. Is it easy sailing to just adapt to the local regulations, or are there need for, let's call it, global alignments for your technology specifically? What's your experience on this?
Okay, thank you. What I have learned is that it's, of course, very important to respect the domestic standards of the countries where we operate. For instance, us at UMO, we operate within the recognized European standard for compressed gas cylinders. And when we come to countries like Japan, Korea, there are slightly different requirements in the standards, which of course may pose a problem when we approach potential customers here. And the system of these approval procedures are often that to get the approval, you need to have a customer, while the customers, they don't want to commit unless you have the approval. So it's this conundrum. What have struck me is that we have a product that has both a recognized international or European standard. It has a long track record with proving itself being the safest option within our niche of the hydrogen business. But approval procedures can still be very complicated. So with the help of companies such as DNV or Kiwa, Bureau Veritas that know of us, we would like to explore if there are alternative paths of being accepted into these new markets where our technology is new to this market, but it is a proven technology that has been around for almost a decade.
Yeah. Jong-won, you also on technology side and for storage tanks. Do you face the same challenges? I mean, you have a very strong presence in Korea, so maybe it hasn't been easier for you to adapt your technology to the existing standards, regulations here?
Yes, so because our lattice pressure vessel is considered to be a novel concept to anywhere that we go in this world, so we do face the similar challenges, but as gentleman mentioned just now, the technology of the storage vessel has been existing for many, many years. So there are a lot of references and then information out there that we could use. And also the way that we work is that when it comes to the maritime solutions, almost all the existing rules are based off of the IGC rule. And then when it comes to the land-based, it's ASME. And then so currently we're in the process of making the rule for us specifically with many of the classes right now, but that is something that we are currently working on.
Yeah. And Damien, for sensors, is that do you have to adapt it for each single market, or would you would it be quite an easy entry to the different market, both for the sensors, but also for the whole, setup, the structure?
Well, I guess we all face the same when it's a local market. We have to certify our products to the local approvals, and this is always a challenge. Yeah, and it takes time, but it is something because, like the others have said, all our products are certified to global approvals like FM, IECX. These are all global recognized approvals by Europeans and American markets. But unfortunately, when it comes to places like Korea or Japan, they have their own local approval, which we need to recertify. But I wouldn't say it's a daunting task, but it's usually something that cost that we have to factor in. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Nel?
Yeah, Nel, of course. Nuno.
Yes, so we have an installed base asset in 80 countries. So in that sense, we are very used to work with the local rules and regulations. In some markets, as in Korea, we need a local partner. And the fact that we have an ongoing project with Samsung, they also help us and guide us with respect with the KGS guidelines, rules and regulations. So it's very important, this is a big chicken and egg, right? You need a project to get the certification. Yeah. But I think the biggest learn for Nel is in some particular markets you need a local partner. You need to partner with a company that is very well known and very knowledgeable on the rules and regulations.
Yeah. I mean, domestic or national rules and regulation is partly based on legacy, where the technology has developed in different countries and different drivers, meeting the local needs and speciality. Partly also to, I would say, perhaps protect its local industry, to shield it a bit from competition to some extent. And certainly maybe that, especially in novel areas, in nascent technologies, it's not so well known. So Robert, maybe I should ask you. So how would you work with class societies and others to align global standards and push that, especially in the area now of hydrogen and ammonia and these things? It's very important that there is global standards, isn't it? That you came over those kind of barriers to deploy it in different countries. How does DNV work on that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's very important that there are global standards. It's very important that there is collaboration and cooperation as far as possible in development. I think I come from a European perspective rather than, I sort of spent 10 years in Europe and have sat on CEN committees, CEN being the European Standardization Agency, and I know they have a coordination group for hydrogen now, which was put in place a few weeks ago, which I also managed to sort of sit in on as well. And on the hydrogen, I think there are something like 50 different technical committees. This is just within Europe, and 250 open lines, and most of these standards were written for natural gas, and they need to be converted. And I think you know, the fact that those agencies also align with ISO and ASME and other committees, I think is really, really important, that they don't just go and do this on their own and they share knowledge. And I think sharing of knowledge is something that in DNV we do very, very much. I mean, I say we have the joint industry projects. We bring people along from all the global industry. I mean, the electrolyzer JIP I mentioned is a case in point. You know, we're looking at sort of a design basis for new pipes or hydrogen pipes. And again, this is done as a joint industry project, and that brings along all the players. And I mean, the UK, just thinking of what we've done at Spade Adam and what we've done in terms of the UK projects, it's really, really important to have the safety regulator on board. And I think having the safety regulator as part of the project enables that to go ahead with much less sort of a challenge. And of course, that challenge doesn't need to be there. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, that, you know, I think KGS potentially, I mean, that others are visiting Spade Adam and looking to see what we're doing there and how these things are working and how you do develop the safety case and build the safety case. And I think socializing that as much as possible and then building those results into recommended practices and ensuring that those recommended practices take that global context is really important. And again, you know, coming back to certification of carbon intensity, you know, ensuring that we understand the regulations of each market and understanding that through that you can then maybe impact on the way those regulations develop.
Yeah.
I think that's something that we would look to do as well, and that's true of CCS, where we've helped, you know, rewrite the CCS, European CCS directive, for example. Yeah. All these things are important to bring along as many players as you possibly can to ensure that it happens in a concerted way.
Yeah, I mean, the area that we're talking about is our global challenges, global opportunities, and I think we should all aim for having work together to lower the cost, to making it most efficient. So, Christine, to us, me and you, representing the government, what is our role? What should we do to align this? Should we be the one that conveys the messages from the industry to the government? What do you think?
I guess mostly our role would be to help and facilitate, since the expert knowledge would anyway be the firms, and I think it's important also to have like the business sector and the firms in a leading role. But of course, my position and your position and DUSOC and Innovation Norway team at the embassy is also an acknowledgement that there's a lot of things that is important to facilitate for like regulations and networking and this translation into different markets. So I think definitely it's something that we need to work together on, and it's important that we have our positions and we do our work, but I think the initiative and the drive have to come from the industries themselves and the businesses themselves, also because it has to be anchored in that business. And
yeah, I think that last point is very important. For us, it's important that industry, comes to us with the issues. It could be small and big. It could be tiny little things. Well, not for you, but for others. So that we can put it together and we can convey that, not only as a representative of one nation, but perhaps also in a pool of nations. We can go together in the Nordic or European setting and stuff like that to align this one. So that's important. The other thing I wanted to maybe raise, we have a few points here, is on a little bit back on the safety aspect around ammonia and hydrogen. There is a lot of myth, I believe, including myself, on how dangerous these new chemicals are. At the same time, we realize that everybody, every day, are handling as dangerous liquid, as potent liquid, by filling our cars with gasoline and diesel and what have you. I mean, there is enough energy in each of these tanks that is equivalent to the hydrogen tank. So there is a perceived risk that hydrogen, and it's everything starting from whatever Hindenburg to the Fukushima hydrogen accident and other things, to the real risk. And how do we demystify this towards the public? The public. How do we change the public opinion in such a way that this is fully acceptable? And the other thing is being when we are using these new fuels in our cars or in our boats or in our houses and everything, do we need to have technical education and certification to do that? Can everybody go and fill hydrogen on a tank? Who wants to try to work on this? It's a more softer level, but maybe we start with you, Damien. You are the safety guy.
Well, it's just like electrical cars, right? Is before anyone moves from fossil fuel to electrical cars, it was actually the government that drives this. You know, there's an initiative, and the government drives this and said, okay, we're going to put higher tax on diesels and all these things. And when people start to say, okay, I'm getting my options lesser and lesser because of cost, so I'll just try out. But you know, whether is it hydrogen or electric cars, the car manufacturer designed the system in the way that they know where the risks are. So, for example, you talk about lithium batteries, right? The protection that they have on the batteries itself is what is weighing down the car. Actually, the car is very light. Okay, it doesn't have, it's just electric motor, right? Not like fossil fuel. There's no engine. It's just a motor. But they put a lot of emphasis on the protection of the lithium batteries. So I'm sure that for hydrogen is also the same thing. The vessel that's carrying the hydrogen gas will be positioned and also be protected by, especially when it comes to collisions. And of course, they will have some kind of gas detection that is inside the car itself to detect any leak that is coming in. But for filling stations, I've seen, like for example, in US or in Japan, right? All the filling stations will have at least 2 flame detectors overlooking the filling station. So the moment a fire is detected, the pipeline is shut down.
Yeah. You know, you want to, I mean, you've been in the hydrogen business for 100 years. And in Norway, of course, from the social acceptance, everybody's happy with, I mean.
Wait, I'm back. It's a difficult one, actually. I think that social acceptance is there. In Norway, the car park is it's more than 90% of the new cars are electric, right? So I don't think that will be reverted. I think the opportunities in the mobility will be on the large trucks, right? And we could see this.
And maritime.
And maritime, of course, right? So I think there, it's a question of having the safety systems in place, right? We see a lot of development in the standards, in the safety systems, in the type of reservoirs. So I think all those industries will converge in a very safe solution. Yeah. I don't see why not. As you mentioned, we already use quite energy-intensive fuels, right? So.
Yeah, Yngve and John, any reflections on I mean, do you get any kickbacks on the safety aspects of dealing with hydrogen in your business?
Yeah, well, I just listed one of our customers in another country, which is operating hydrogen fuel stations. And this aspect was very important for them, because they will not, in this country, they will not have like trained engineers doing the filling on the heavy duty trucks. It will be reliant on the truck drivers doing it themselves. So they really need to find a solution, or they have found a solution that minimizes the possibility of human error to a bare minimum, which makes it as safe as for regular diesel filling, as safe and as easy. Like maybe a truck driver coming into the depot after a long day's work, and the last thing he's going to do after a 6-hour drive is to fill the hydrogen vehicle. So you need to have a system that that still makes it impossible to make a critical human error in these conditions. So you have a temperature detection of the gas, of course, fire detection from my colleague here, and all these systems in place. So there is a risk, but it can be handled.
Yeah, John?
I think everybody just pretty much covered everything. But as a company, I feel like, especially in Korea, we're in the process of establishing the safety rules, especially for the liquid hydrogen. And then we are working very closely with the Korean Gas Association to make the use of the hydrogen safe for everybody. So that's pretty much what we can do as a company.
Yeah. I guess, Robert, you would answer that. You make the standards, so it's all in good shape in DNV hands.
I've got to be very careful what I say because our safety experts are in the audience. So, but I mean, just going back, this perception of risk versus real risk. I mean, I heard from people who were in the gas industry at the time when we did conversion from town gas to natural gas, and of course, town gas was running in people's homes in the UK from 1812, so it's quite a long while. Until around 1970 when the conversion occurred to natural gas. And of course, town gas is a mixture of hydrogen and carbon monoxide. And people were happily allowing hydrogen and carbon monoxide into their homes for many, many, many years. I mean, well over a century. And anecdotally, I heard that engineers were worried about the switch to methane, to natural gas, because they felt it would not disperse as quickly as hydrogen, which of course town gas disperses more quickly because it's hydrogen. And you know, going back to Singapore, in Singapore they still have town gas. There are sort of 750,000 homes, I think, that are running on a mixture of hydrogen and carbon monoxide. I wouldn't necessarily want that in my home, but I wouldn't be too worried about the hydrogen. And you know, I think it's as safe as it. You know, safety is about probability and impact, and you need to manage it to be as low as practicably possible. Yeah. Sorry, so the risks as low as reasonably practicable. Sorry, ALRP, and you can spend as much money as you like to try and make it perfectly safe, but it's a question of reducing the probability of that happening to as low as you reasonably can without killing the whole technology because you're spending too much. So it's a question of how much you need to spend. I mean, you can mitigate risks. Standards are still in development, and as though we tend to be more conservative now than we need to be in terms of the application of these technologies, because the standards are not necessarily fully fit for purpose, but as the standards develop, we will get less conservative. And I think that a lot of the work going on at the moment is to ensure that we can mitigate risks at a lower cost. Yeah. And I think that's the issue. And I think public perception, again, if you look at the fact that hydrogen is being pumped into people's homes in Singapore and Hong Kong and one or two other places as well, still, without that much of a perception of risk, well, then clearly, you know, it's a different regime in terms of pressure and risk. But you know, hydrogen per se has different explosive characteristics, has different flammability characteristics. But if you can keep the percentage below 50% in air for a leak, and it's pretty much the same as methane. So you really need to be able to detect and manage and put all the safety features in place to ensure that you don't get to that point where you could have a risk. And of course, you need to minimize the potential for ignition. And you know, as long as you put those safety measures in place, you can make it safe. Yeah, but it will become easier.
Those are the engineers' answer to the thing. But like the common consumers, I would say. And Christine, you did your PhD on studying Korean culture and language and so on. You have a very good, comparison between, let's say, Norwegian or Nordic culture, mindset, risk attitude and things. Do you see, is there any difference in the way of accepting these things between Korea or North Asia and maybe North Europe?
Oh, big question.
Yes.
My PhD was on green growth policy, actually.
All right.
So not so many reflections there, but from, of course, being a PhD student here and living here, there's obviously like big differences. But I think in relation to developing new technologies and also using them, taking them into use. I think in Korea there's a tradition also for being quite quick, being quick at implementing new technologies, doing things fast once they decide, like, this is the policy, this is the strategy, these are the goals. A good ability here, in my opinion, to coordinate also between business and universities and the public sector giving support. So once there's a strategy and a goal, it's a lot of effort and it could happen quite quickly. I think we've seen this also previously, not only related to renewable energy or green technology, but throughout like Korea's economic history and economic rise. Whereas in Norway, of course, we also do develop technologies. We're also a major player in several technologies and industries. But very often things takes longer time, and the coordination, of course, of investments between public and private sector, industry, etc., often takes longer and is a lot more bureaucratic. So I think in Korea there's large potential for things to happen very fast and for them to take a leading role quite fast. Yeah.
We are running out of time. Actually, we had run out of time, and it's the reception waiting for us. So I would just like to end this by each of you, but just pass the microphone quickly in one sentence, 2 sentences. Where do you see the Korean market is now developing for your product specifically? Start with Nuno. Good, bad, super?
I think the potential is enormous, especially not only on the market in Korea, but also the players in the market, the large EPC companies. They have a broad reach within the world, and they are looking at enormous projects outside Korea also.
Yep.
So we need to partner with them so we can go together.
Very good. Yngve?
Thank you. I think that for our product, these Type 4 transportation storage modules, there is a huge opportunity both for us and for the Korean hydrogen economy. And if only KGS allows us, we will be a big enabler in the Korean hydrogen economy.
Very good. Robert? Quick, please, if possible.
I mean, things are going to happen in a big way in Korea. I'm not sure it's going to happen as quickly as we might have expected it to a couple of years ago, but things are falling into place, and there is a real need to decarbonize. And I think hydrogen and ammonia will be one of the options that is clearly developed, and it will happen.
Yeah, great, John.
Hello.
Yeah.
So Korean, for being a small country, we have a very big the shipbuilding industry. So considering that, and also working with the major players, so we are definitely seeing the hoping for the brighter future.
Very good, Damien.
Okay, most Korean EPCs know the Autronica brand very well, and especially now with the clean energy, and most of the customers are looking at our expertise, especially because as a Norwegian company, it's a key driver for renewable energy. So we see a very strong acceptance from the Korean EPCs to use our safety solutions.
Yes. Thank you very much. We'll round it off there. Thanks to the panelists. Please be seated because we take a photo. Was that okay? Yeah. But thank you so much. Thanks to the audience as well. And the reception is next room. Is that right? 306. 306. Yep.